Throughout much of the world, they're small, underused bits of land. We're learning how to transform these bits of land into microforest gardens that can supply plenty of the nutrients that are most often lacking in our diets. These forest gardens focus on some of the most nutritious of the more than 1,000 species of plants with edible leaves. They use simple, low-cost organic gardening methods, and they'll thrive in poor soil and in the increasingly common hot weather. They'll also support a wide diversity of plants and animals. Have a look at one of these gardens here in North Florida. The garden's roughly 300 square feet, or 28 square meters, of extremely sandy soil. For the past 2 years, we've been spreading wood chips over the entire area. If you look closely, you can see the fungal threads that are gradually breaking down the wood chips. The chips slowly release nutrients to the plants and allow the sandy soil to hold more water. Let's have a look at some of the 20 edible leaf plants that are growing in this garden. We'll start with one of my favorites, Aibika, or Pacific hibiscus. It's a beautiful perennial with mild flavored leaves that's easily propagated from stem cuttings. Sweet potatoes can be grown as a ground cover. They've got edible leaves as well as edible roots. Sweet potato leaves are a top source of lutein, an antioxidant that protects our eyes and skin against damage from ultraviolet rays in our sunshine. Quail grass, or Soko, is a self-seeding annual in the amaranth family. Once it goes to seed, it normally produces plenty of volunteers for the next crop, so you never have to buy seed again. It has mild-flavored leaves and pretty spiky purple flowers. Okinawa spinach is a sprawling perennial with very nutritious leaves. It's easily reproduced from stem cuttings, and its leaves have a cool purple underside. The fragrant leaves of this newly planted lemongrass can be used in Asian cooking or as an insect repellent. Turmeric is a perennial crop that's well known for its bright yellow roots. Like its roots, turmeric leaves have strong anti-inflammatory properties, and they add a bright flavor to many dishes. Mushroom plant, or Moringa clausi, is a shade-loving shrub from New Guinea. It has tender mushroom-flavored leaves that can be eaten raw or lightly cooked. We grow Anise Hyssop mainly because it's a strong attractor for pollinators, and it also has sweet licorice-flavored leaves that are good in a variety of teas. Hopi Amaranth is a pretty self-seeding annual. It's grown for both its nutritious leaves and for its seeds. The seeds can be eaten like grains and have more than twice the protein of corn or rice. Garlic chives are a perennial and a close relative of garlic. They share most of the flavor and health benefits. They're easy to grow perennials that propagate by root division. Variegated cassava is an edible ornamental plant. It's a variation on common cassava. We'll get to that in a minute. Surinam Purslane is a fast-growing, sprawling perennial that's very easy to propagate from stem cuttings. It can quickly fill in empty spaces in your garden and has mild enough flavor to be eaten raw. This is a beautiful plant called Cranberry Hibiscus. It has tangy leaves that can add flavor, color, and nutrition to salads. Sissoo, or Samba spinach, from Brazil, is a perennial ground cover and another good hot weather substitute for spinach. Horsetail reportedly has many medicinal properties, but we use it mainly as a tea or a drench to discourage fungal or viral diseases in plants. Katuk is a perennial understory plant that thrives in partial shade. Katuk leaves are a popular vegetable in Southeast Asia. They have a peanut-like flavor, and they're rich in protein, vitamin A and C, calcium, and iron. Vine spinach, also called Malabar spinach or Basilla, is a warm weather climber with high nutrient and mild flavored leaves. It's a good hot weather substitute for spinach and can be eaten raw or lightly cooked. Chaya, sometimes called tree spinach or Mayan spinach, is a super productive perennial leaf crop from Mexico. It's resistant to drought and to insect attack, and it can be grown as a hedge or as a living fence row. It's one of the most nutritious of all vegetables, but it must be cooked for at least 15 minutes to make sure it's safe to eat. It's ridiculously easy to propagate it from stem cuttings. Cassava is sometimes called the poor man's friend because it produces so well in drought and in poor soil. Cassava roots are a primary source of calories for about 500 million people in the tropics. It's a perennial plant. In addition to starchy roots, it has highly nutritious leaves. The leaves should be cooked for at least 30 minutes to make sure they're safe to eat. We grow climbing plants on bamboo trellises to take advantage of vertical space for crop production. This can result in yields that are up to 3 times as great. This is especially important when growing space is in short supply. Bamboo is a plentiful and often free resource in much of the world. One of the very best of these climbing plants is the vigorous Seminole Pumpkin. It's resistant to many of the insects and diseases that pester other members of the squash family. The leaves, flowers, immature fruit, and mature pumpkins can all be eaten, and it's easy to save seeds for continued planting. The Seminole people in Florida planted the seeds below trees that could act as natural trellises. Hyacinth or loblab bean is an enthusiastic climber. It has edible leaves and edible beans. It's sometimes grown as an ornamental because it has purple flowers and purple bean pods. Scattered throughout and anchoring this garden are several Moringa trees. These are sometimes called a miracle tree in Africa because they're so drought resistant and they have exceptionally nutritious leaves. We usually cut the Moringa trees off at about 6 feet to encourage more leaf production on side shoots and to make harvesting easier. If they're not pruned, Moringas will make tall, spindly trees with a few leaves up at the top that are hard to harvest. Moringa leaves are easily stripped off to cook like spinach or to dry for later use. Moringa can be started from either seeds or from stem cuttings. Well, that's about it. We're learning a lot from this garden as we go and having fun watching the plants trying to form their own little community. There's 5 points that we've learned so far from this garden. 1, choose nutrient-rich leaf crops. The differences can be huge. For example, Moringa has 17 times more iron than lettuce, and Chaya has nearly 200 times as much vitamin A as cabbage. 2, emphasize perennial plants. They don't need to be replanted every year. They've got deeper roots, so they can reach water in the dry season. They'll capture more carbon from the air, and they reduce soil erosion. 3, choose plants that reproduce by stem cuttings or root division, or self-seeding annuals, in order to minimize or eliminate buying seeds. The high cost of garden seeds is a big reason why many low-income people don't grow vegetable gardens. 4, mulch heavily to minimize weeds. The tedious labor of weeding is a common reason for people to quit gardening after they've started. And 5, encourage a diversity of life, both above and below ground, by avoiding poisons, attracting pollinators, and providing perches for songbirds. This will make for gardens that are beautiful and interesting, as well as productive. Thank you.